Welcome to the Hourly Podcast. In today's episode, McKell Morrison, recruiting manager at Swig, shares insights into the brand's rapid growth, unique offerings, and the importance of employee culture. Swig has become a popular destination for customers seeking a fun and refreshing experience. Morrison emphasizes the company's commitment to its people and community, highlighting how social media has played a crucial role in their success. As Swig plans for future expansion, maintaining a strong culture and connection among employees remains a top priority. Enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by JoJo, an AI virtual recruiter powered by Sprockets. Designed for the hourly workforce, JoJo works 24/7 to source, screen, and schedule interviews with the best applicants for your business. JoJo helps reduce employee turnover and time spent hiring so you and your team can focus on other important tasks. To learn more, head to sprockets.ai/JoJo.
McKell, welcome to the Hourly Podcast.
Thank you.
Where are you calling in from?
Salt Lake City.
Very cool. We were just joking before we pressed record. You're from Swig, which is growing very quickly. Very awesome, exciting brand. Let's get started with how you got there. What was your first day like, and when did you hear about them?
Well, I kind of grew up in this area, and so, Swig started in Utah in 2010, and it started in the South in St. George. And in high school, I actually remember going and getting my first Swig drink and cookie and posting on my Instagram story because it was like so cool that I got to go. They started growing more in, the northern side, and I went to college up here, and it was just the place to go. Everyone had Swig all the time, and, you posted your pictures that you were there, and, they came out with new cookies and this, and it was just a cool thing to do. So I kind of just grew up a little bit in it and never really knew what it actually was and what it could be, because it was just kind of the soda shop next door until it's not anymore. And it's so much more than
for those that don't know soda and exactly what Swig does, because typically we have all types of different types of businesses here. Like, give us like the 101 of what you can get inside of a Swig.
Yeah. So we specialize in what we call dirty sodas, which is basically your favorite base soda with some really fun mix-ins. That goes from purees to syrups to creams and fresh fruit and, little bobas, whatever it may be. And, you put stuff in it and it makes it a dirty soda. And we also do cookies and pretzels. So it's just kind of a pick-me-up in your day kind of stop.
Interesting. So what do you get when you order there?
I'm personally a fan of what's called the Raspberry Dream, which is a Dr. Pepper with raspberry puree and coconut cream. And then I always have to get a sugar cookie because I just can't help it. But that's my go-to.
Right. Yeah. And, what's interesting was, now across social media, and maybe you guys have just great retargeting ads, but even just in pop culture, I'm hearing more and more about Swig. Why is that for those that aren't watching the news and anything like that?
We've opened up more and more across the country, and it's a fun place to go. And that's what we want. We want to serve you what we always say all the time, happiness in a cup. It's your pick-me-up throughout the day. It's your stop to, wherever you may going, work or with friends or whatever. And it's just a fun place. So I think as we've grown, more people are starting to realize that. And so combined with social media and just, social media is so big. So one thing, and it's popular and everyone knows about it, and so it's been really good for us. But
what's interesting about it is, I think, I grew up in Syracuse, New York area. I went to school in the Northeast. I don't think it comes naturally to me to go somewhere for like a fancy soda, right? And I don't mean to like downgrade, because you guys have been so well, and now I'm like obsessed with, next time I'm anywhere where there's a Swig, I have to go and see what all the craze is about. Mm-hmm. But for me, it seems far-fetched, right? Do you hear that a lot, or?
Yeah, and I think we hear that all the time, because it's like soda's just, you go to the gas station, and that's right. And that's really how it started. Our founder, she loved going and just getting her sodas, and she loved putting coconut syrup and fresh lime. And it was the best part about her day. And she just then decided to start her own little shop to get it. And we realized that people think it's fun. It's a little bit kind of like coffee. Like you can make coffee at home and it's good, but there's something about going and getting the latte and the syrups and the seasonal drinks. And it's the same thing with soda, but people didn't know about it until now.
Yeah. That's a really good comparison to a coffee shop because it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, like you can get coffee anywhere, but
Mhm.
people spend a lot of money on great coffee. And I think the atmosphere also is a big part of that. And you guys have really hit that home. And we'll talk about the people in a second, but location's very pretty. It's kind of a cool place to hang out. And with
Mhm.
social media, to your point, it's like you go and it's content as well,
Mhm.
right? It's like people love to go and have the Swig brand associated with them and so forth. But this is the Hourly Podcast. As you know, we love talking about people just as you do. So talk about your role at Swig
Yeah.
and some of the basic people stuff. And we'll start to weave into questions
Yeah.
and stuff kind of around that.
Yeah. Well, I'm our recruiting manager.
Mm,
So I focus on hiring at both our home office and corporate level, all the way to overseeing and helping out with our stores.
mm,
So kind of all over the place. But it's really fun to be in kind of the recruiting space because Swig cares so much about our people and our culture. It's the
mm.
heart of everything we do. And so to be able to be kind of on that front line of bringing people in to help create that culture is so fun. So it's a fun job to have for sure.
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about why you think Swig's been so successful on the people side,
Yeah.
right? So why is that?
Yeah. It starts, if we look back to our founder and just the community that she started. And it was always more important than, just growing and growing and growing. It was growing with the people that you have and their growth too. And so with all this growth, we care so much about our momentum. With all the momentum, we care about our people first,
Mm,
and that's their growth in their careers. That is, how they feel every single day when they come into work, and how we can make it a highlight of their day and not something that they, don't want to come to. Um, and helping to create those skills that you need for your entire life. A lot of people have Swig as their first job, so we have that amazing opportunity to help them learn skills to help them in whatever career that they may choose, whether that's within Swig or elsewhere. And we want that to happen. And so, obviously there's so many different skills that, you can kind of pick up in any job, but because Swig and the environment and the trainings that we do and, what we really want, are people to, project to the world. And, it's a really cool place to kind of start your career.
yeah, and I think too, you guys have a master class. You guys should do a case study on kind of employee branding and recruitment.
Yeah.
So I think, and I say this with like all the love in the world. I feel like you guys start with a great candidate pool, right? And it makes the different steps of the hiring motion and retention motion a little bit easier because you start kind of with people that really want to be there, as
Mhm.
opposed to a brand that might not be known for fun, might not be known for culture and all these things. And you get the people, therefore, that'll apply to any job to apply to all of those. But with Swig, it feels like it's highly intentional when somebody shows up and they say, no, like I want to be here, which is so important, as you know, in the hourly space. And I think just personally, a lot of that delivers is from the social media presence that you guys have, the presence you have in influencers, right? Being able to see you guys on TV and kind of being an it brand, if you will.
Mhm.
Any thoughts around that? Am I wrong?
No, it's true. And like I said earlier, social media has been huge for us, especially as we're getting in these new markets that have no idea, why we would mix things in soda. Kind of to your point of like, it's a weird kind of thought process at first. Like you put cream in soda, it's kind of a weird brand. So having that social media aspect, having, just different media outlets start to notice, it allows people to be like, oh, I saw that on TikTok or I saw that on TV or whatever it may be. and they want to try it. And then all of a sudden it just kind of continues and continues. So when people, apply, yeah, a lot of it is they first heard about it from social media and they think it would be a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I know a lot of our listeners that are in talent, CHRO, CPOs of a lot of different brands are going to think, because this is where my mind goes, is like, how can I put that in a bottle and like apply it to my business? And I think the challenging thing with a brand like Swig is, or for somebody to replicate it, is it's kind of just like this hidden like coolness factor. That's not like you can pay X amount of dollars, add it to your career page, and all of a sudden you have it, right? Like, so from your perspective, are you intentional at building it, or is it just part of culture that like in all the social media, in who you guys are, you kind of have that young, cool, hip culture that drives a lot of applicants?
Yeah, we are incredibly intentional. Like I said, from the beginning, it was so much more about our community that we can build, both in where we are putting our stores, but also with who is inside of our stores. So it's so much more that we want to make that happen, and growth is important, right? And it's something that we love and we want and all of that, but we can't do without our people. So it's incredibly intentional, both from, here at the corporate office of, what can we do in our everyday lives and in our positions to help make sure that we are helping to have things trickle down into the culture of the stores. And so, when we're looking and speaking with general managers, district managers, it's always a big topic of how can we make sure that we are, making the people in the stores feel seen and, feel and see their value, but also have fun and come in every day. And how do we do that? And it's can be a little different sort of store depending on, your team of, maybe what the different needs are and how you can help create that. But it's definitely, a daily conversation of how we can do that. And I think that's why it's there. We're not willing to compromise our culture just for growth.
Yeah, super interesting. And remind us, how many locations are there right now?
Yeah, we have about 90 right now.
Okay.
And that's kind of split up between corporate and franchise.
Got it. And then is the plan, and you don't have to share like the deep dark secrets, but is the plan to grow, I'm assuming, across the country, and are you thinking about that very quickly in 2025? Kind of how are you thinking about growth?
Yeah, so growth is definitely on the radar. It's next year will be a huge year for us when it comes to that. And so we're so excited and, focusing on strategy, not just surrounding the actual growth itself, but again, hiring and the people and, how we can make that happen in just across the country.
Yeah. So when you think about like what cities that are ideal for Swig, is it like, you want to be in major metros? Is it you want to be in rural areas? Are you targeting specific regions? And I'm selfishly asking because I want one in Charleston. So like, are you thinking about our territory?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but what I can say is Swig is a concept that revolves around our drive-through a lot of the time. Like I said, it's kind of that pick me up, right? So it can kind of depend, and I'm not on a real estate team, so I don't exactly know their strategies. But what I can say is we want to be in an area where, we can connect with the community, but also, be that stop for you. So usually, kind of an area where it's easy to get in and out tends to be kind of the strategy from my understanding.
There's a place right around the corner from our offices, just in case you guys need a spot.
Yeah, send it over. I'll pass it to my team.
Perfect. But one of the last questions I had is, it from the outside, really cool employer brand, good applicant flow, and of course, like great reputation within the space for how you treat hourly workers and just the quality of everything inside of the locations. But what keeps you up at night? Like what are you worried about in the upcoming months or years as it pertains to people?
That's such a good question. I do, I guess worry just about, making sure that we still have the connection with stores moving forward. I've been here for 3 years. So when I came on, we had, maybe 30 locations and, and I still know every general manager. I have their number on my phone, very close with our team. So there is always going to be that worry of, wanting to grow and wanting to make sure there's still that connection between, store to store and home office to store and, us to franchisees, and just making sure that there's connection there. And obviously, the more and more stores you get, the harder that is. So, that's another thing that we actively focus and strategize on, is how can we make sure that there's still a level of connection and community within the Swig brand itself.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I hear that a lot from emerging brands, right? Is the not fear, but just something they're keeping an eye out on is, how do you maintain culture with scale? Because I think inherently when you have 5-10 locations, it's a lot easier than when you have 1,000 locations, because if you hear about something that goes wrong or you want to make a change, you can almost drive to all the different locations and like get switched. But there's of course the fear that as you get to 1,000, the amount of controls and tentacles, if you will, across the brand, it's just a little bit harder to manage, particularly around people, which is an imperfect thing. So it's easy, to buy 1,000 signs that look exactly the same and put them inside of every single restaurant. But to make sure that everyone is hired the same way, treated the same way, takes orders the same way, and you do employment engagement the same way is a different thing, especially as you branch into franchises where the general managers are managed by somebody that isn't owned or works for corporate. It works for somebody in the franchise system. So no, I totally get that. And what are some ways that you think about, I don't want to say control, because I don't think that's the right word, but ensure that the amazing Swig culture sustains after location 100, 200, 1,000?
Yeah. There's, a couple things that we currently do and want to make sure that we are improving on and implementing. I think one thing is that, Swig is recognizing these things. They're recognizing, that things can be different, and we're listening to our team who, if somebody's having a bad experience or they, whatever it may be, Swig wants to hear it, and we are all wanting to make sure that we are making the changes necessary. So it's a bit of that communication, making sure that there's just, whether that's kind of through trainings, obviously when they first come on, that's how they first, team members, general managers, whoever it may be, that's their first introduction to Swig. So the trainings need to reflect our culture and who we are at the core, so that they can, get started on a good foot. And then continuing that, it's who we have in the store, and, making sure that they also inhibit what Swig is, because it's so much more than just soda. Our culture is something that I'm so incredibly proud of, and it's like I said, it's so community based and so special. And so, making sure that they feel that, and that they know who Swig is at the core, and that they feel connected to Swig. And so it's about that communication from, either us to franchisees, and making sure that they feel connected so that they can, show that to their stores, or us to our management out in the field, and making sure that they feel that as well. And, that's not an easy thing to do. And we're learning as we grow. But, it's because we want to learn. And that's such a goal for us, that we are willing to make sure that it's happening.
Totally get it. No, well, okay. So the last question for every single podcast guest that I have on here is, first hourly job ever. What was it? And were you fired from that job, or did you leave gracefully?
I worked at a snow shack.
What is that?
Like a snow cone.
Got it.
Little shack. And, there were multiple in my town growing up, and I think it actually very much pertains to my job now, of that, kind of, again, little pick me up in the syrups and all of that. So I do think it's kind of funny that now I'm in that same type of business, just on a bigger scale. And I had that all throughout high school, and I loved it. I go back anytime I go home, I go to that snow shack, and I just get all the feels of.
And
just
that's in Salt Lake.
This is actually, I grew up and went to high school in Idaho.
Oh, okay. Is it snowy there?
Right now it's snowing, yeah.
Okay, because I just imagine you kind of with a spoon just going outside, scooping up some some ice and like dropping it in,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's more sophisticated than that.
They would normally close it once it got too snowy to have it.
Got it. Yeah.
But yeah, it was such a fun job, and I didn't get fired. I had to go to college, and so I left for college.
Got it. Okay, and if somebody wants to learn more about working at Swig, where should they go?
You can go to swigdrinks.com. We have a careers page there, and you can see all the jobs we have open. And I share stuff on LinkedIn as well. So there's lots of ways to find out, what we have open and to apply.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.